All right, so this week in Pax Dei, not much came out. There is a reason for that. Actually, the PR team over at Mainframe Industry is taking a I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to share this, but they're taking a break, believe it or not. But because of that, they've done the cardinal sin of giving me absolutely nothing in terms of news to talk about. So instead, we are going to be going on a bit of a journey today, and I don't really know the destination. So we're going to be going on it together. That is what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about why I think most people who are looking to play an MMO right now, they're lying to themselves. I've ranted about this many times before. If you've come and watched any of the live streams I've done in the past, I've talked about this. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about everything from Steam charts to how startups work. I don't know exactly where this is going to lead, but we are going to have a discussion about it. I hope you enjoy this type of conversation. It's one that I had fun putting together, and this is what happens when we have a week that's a relatively dry week. We look for things to talk about on the PAX Friday review, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to talk about all of that and a little bit more. So hello and welcome back, all of you amazingly professional consumers of Pax Dei and Pax Dei related content out there. I'm Eltar, the Professional Gamer, and this is another episode of the Pax Friday Review, the show where we talk about all the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information that has come out for Pax Dei in the last week. Like I said, today it's going to be a little bit of an atypical day. We're going to be talking about things. I know there's already people angrily talking in the comment section saying, what do you mean I don't like playing MMOs? This is what I'm like doing. I love playing MMOs. You're lying to yourselves. I think most people are actually lying to themselves. And I think the industry has seen people lying to themselves and has benefited from it long enough. And now we're going the way of the dodo. And we're going to talk about that and why I think Mainframe and Pax Dei is uniquely positioned in this as well. But in order for this journey to really, really take into effect, the first thing that I really want to talk about is, well, really what I just mentioned. But before we do that, I just want to say, if you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe so you can get notified whenever we come out with new Pax Dei related content, and also share with any of your friends. This is a general conversation, and where this conversation is going to start, first and foremost, is what I kind of started with the intro, is I don't think most people really want to play MMOs anymore. Now, before all of the angry comments come flooding into this video, let me explain why. Primarily, my thought process behind this and why I think most people are lying to themselves. We had the golden age of MMOs back in the early 2000s, all right? Maybe even slightly earlier. You can call the early 2000s that golden age, but maybe there was a silver age happening right in the 90s. I'm talking mostly late 90s, Ultima Online, but then we get Star Wars Galaxies, EverQuest, then we get World of Warcraft, EVE Online, and then boom, everything explodes. MMOs are the hot thing. Everyone's wanting to make a new one. Everyone wants to be the next WoW. We have 10 years, basically, of everyone making World of Warcraft clones. That's where the industry's going. Why is the industry going there? Because that's where all of the players are. That's where the budding gaming industry of the early thousands was starting to see, holy crap, we're able to make a lot of money from people just subscribing to Digital Pixels Online, and all we have to do is make a little bit more content in this giant world that we've basically given to them empty, and we just put more stuff into it, and they keep paying us $15 a month. This is an ATM machine. And that's really where all of this started. And for us, the player base, many of the people who are watching, many of the people who play Pax Dei, by the way, are all people who primarily are in their mid to late 30s or beyond, and they have all had the same cumulative experience of this golden age of MMO. And that's where this journey is really going to begin, right? Because we as players are always looking to go back to that nostalgia. We're looking for that nostalgia hit. And in reality, what does that look like? Well, I think you can see it if you look at every single Steam DB of every MMO that's out. When World of Warcraft has an expansion, you see a drop in player count for every other MMO. And the reason for that is because people are nostalgia junkies and they like taking that hit of nostalgia directly from the source. Most players at some point in time or another have played World of Warcraft. At least of all of the major MMOs that were out in the early thousands, World of Warcraft is the last one standing, really, in terms of a large player base. So people keep going back to it. They keep on hitting it. The problem is that we're no longer the 7 to 18-year-old kids that we were back when we were still hitting LAN parties, when we were going to a friend's house, eating pizza, having greasy fingers, chips, Cheetos, Mountain Dews, and just no-lifing World of Warcraft or no-lifing any other MMO. I'm guilty of that too. The difference now is that most of that population still loves that particular nostalgia hit, but they have responsibilities like work, like kids, like spouses. They need to be able to make mortgage payments, and they don't have the opportunity to do that anymore, but they still crave that golden age feeling that we had way back in the day. And that's ultimately what people want. It's not necessarily that they want an MMO, it's that they really just want to go back to that feeling that they had when they were younger. And you see a lot of different companies, a lot of different games go and do this in a lot of different ways, right? You have the ability to pay to win, which in this case sometimes can be, hey, you just pay the company more money and you get all of the best things in the game, and it's super out of balance. It doesn't work really well. But then other times you can just pay to make it so you level up faster, or pay for a plot that it would exist in a game that you could build on. And these particular benefits were things that came not because of the direction that games go. In fact, I think most people would argue that if those features existed back when the original MMOs, the golden age of MMOs, sorry, I'm not trying to call out that anything before World of Warcraft, EverQuest, Star Wars Galaxies isn't an MMO. There's actually really good MMOs that I've played from back in the day. But if these features existed back then, we wouldn't have actually had the same nostalgic experience that we now fondly look back on today. And I think that's really a key point to recall here, because now as we go into the future, you have all of these features that are coming online. Why? Because people don't have the time to go back and do the same thing that they did in World of Warcraft when it was 2003, and the only thing that they had to worry about is a test that they had in chemistry in high school a week from then. So they could just, the only thing that they had to do is play World of Warcraft over the weekend, and they loved it. And that was a great memory to have. But now they work and they don't have 12 hours a day to commit to gaming. So instead, they just kind of log in. They get that nostalgia hit. Maybe they use some XP boosters. Maybe they go and get a little bit of a faster. Maybe they pay a little bit. Sometimes maybe they even go pay for some gold or do some real money trading so that they can go off and enjoy the content and get that hit, but in their limited time. Then after that, we saw MMOs transition into, oh, well, we're MMOs, but there's really no grind. I think the best example of this in more recent memory is when you were able to basically level yourself up in a game like New World in the course of 2 weeks. You could just get to max level and just be doing whatever you wanted to do. That's insane. When you look back all the way back in the day, it could take players, like RuneScape, there's people who play that game for a decade and still are trying to get all of the skills that they're looking for. And it's things that they've been working on for a really long time. But now you have these newer games where even with some of them, they experimented with the ability to have a bot control your character and go level up so that you could keep your computer logged into the game while you're at work. This is not an MMO anymore. MMOs are about grinding, about the people who have a lot of time to commit, getting ahead of the people who don't have a lot of time to commit. And the way that you fix that is you just commit more time. And why is that? Because the way that the game works and the way that the developers get paid is by you paying every month. It makes absolutely no sense for a subscription-based game to exist in this world where you basically can finish all of the leveling in a week or 2 weeks, right? So then, because players don't have that time to commit anymore, the different developers of these new age of MMOs after the golden age, maybe we call it the platinum age or the silver age or the bronze age, whichever one we call it, they started basically giving players the ability to remove the grind so that they can still feel like they did something, get that nostalgia hit, and then move on. But that's not the true MMO experience. And the reason why I'm bringing this up today, other than the fact that, well, there was no real news to talk about in Pax Dei, is because I think there's a couple of things specifically here with how Mainframe has framed this business, not the game, but the business, that's actually pretty intriguing, because they don't offer to hold your hand. In reality, the best that you can get is a premium subscription, which is going to give you an additional amount of experience that you can just earn on. But in reality, we're talking in values that are months, not weeks. And there's no way to boost your character from point A to point B like in many MMOs that we see in the modern age of MMO. But instead, you can spend money to own property, basically, in the game. And you actually don't have to spend money in order to do that. They actually gave you the opportunity to just go and play the game, and you can very easily acquire the gold that you can then exchange for the resource called Grace, which you can then spend 400 Grace every month to have your own Grace plot for free. You don't even have to pay for a subscription in order to own a plot. And believe it or not, I've been looking through a lot of my comment section, and it's incredible how many people don't actually know that. And then also how many people think that that's some insurmountable barrier that you can't pass, which is just utterly wrong. In fact, in the next week or two, I'm going to be coming out with a video to show exactly what you can do as a free to play or you pay to play but no subscription player can do in order to maintain their plot in a very easy, very manageable method. That means you can basically play this game for free after purchasing the initial copy, which is, I think, $30 on the Steam store right now. So with that being said, there's so many other misconceptions about this game as well, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But before we do, I just really want to hammer back on this particular point that Mainframe has found a way to monetize their game, which is a sandbox MMO. Effectively, we, the players, get to create the content. They have found a way to monetize it in a way that is going to allow for them to keep developing new tools for us to play with while giving us the tools currently to go and create the content for ourselves. Now, this type of game is not going to yield the same mass appeal that a World of Warcraft game is going to get. Sandbox games just aren't going to be that. Sandboxes, you have way more dedicated player bases, but probably smaller ones that they build these communities together and they're super loyal and they can continue this. They have a very low, we're going to use some terms here, churn rate, which means the rate at which a player stops or cancels a subscription. It's a monthly statistic. The churn rate is, so if you have 100 players every month that are subscribed and you have a 3% churn rate, then that means after month 1, you have 97 players. After month 2, you're going to have somewhere around 95 players, and you're just going to keep on losing players month over month over month, because that's what a churn rate is. And then you have a subscription rate, which is how many people are actually subscribing to the game every month in addition to the current player base. So how many people are you gaining? How many people are you losing? Those are the two levers that they really have here. And those two levers are the ones they're going to push and pull using the plot system that we currently have. Nevertheless, Mainframe isn't giving you the opportunity to play the game and get that nostalgia hit as fast as if you were to just go to like a Guild Wars 2, buy a level 80 pack, go and experience the story for 3 weeks, and then leave, right? You have a sustained community that's playing and going and going and going. And that's why, in order to really drive this home, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to... I know that this is going to just break the comments. We're going to go to the Steam charts, y'all. We're going to go over to the Steam charts. We actually have a couple of things that we're going to take a look at over there. We're going to end this with my favorite thing in the world. We're going to have a spreadsheet on Mainframe's burn rate. This isn't real. The numbers aren't real. This is all stuff that I've taken from publicly available information. None of this is taken from Mainframe. Mainframe doesn't sponsor these videos. They haven't sponsored a video on this channel for close to 2 years, which honestly I prefer that way because it allows me to do things like this, but also it keeps things honest and I can say things. And when I say things, you can trust that I'm saying things that I feel. The last time that we did some promotional content on this channel where they actually paid for something was a long time ago. And I'm pretty sure I can't even say what that particular thing was, or if I can, it's somewhere in a contract somewhere. I don't know, but it's been a while. It's been a very long while, y'all. So we're going to go over to the Steam database right now, take a look at a couple of games that I've selected. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about a little bit of some startup dynamics, what I think Mainframe is planning to do in the next year. And I think they're actually in a pretty good spot, if you're asking me, for where they are as a company. And then if I'm feeling spicy enough, there's been some pretty big misconceptions on what Pax Dei is, just based on a couple of comments that I've read. So we might take a journey into that too. I'll see you right over on the Steam database. Oh man, I don't know if this is the right choice, but we're going to go and do it anyways. I'll see you over there. All right, and this is not the Steam database, but this is the official Discord, and the PR team's been out, y'all. The PR team has taken a much needed break. I appreciate it. I hope they have a good time off and they feel nice and refreshed. But okay, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. What the heck is going on with the Steam charts right now for Pax Dei? Comment section, you're gonna go crazy on this regardless. Everyone has their own opinions. Oh no, game go big, then go down. This is a typical thing that happens with pretty much every game on release cycles. You get a release, it goes down, you get another release or a free weekend in this case, and then it goes down again. This is the cycle that we're in. We know that this is the cycle that we're in. This is how every game cycle works. This is just what it is. Right now, we're hovering at around 1,500 players, I would say, on a 24-hour average over the next month. We do see increases, especially the free weekend. We saw an increase in players after the free week ended. Obviously, those players dipped off, but it did actually help out on the charts. These charts are going to be important for a couple of reasons that we're going to talk about when we get into the startup dynamics of Mainframe, which is going to be a pretty interesting little talk here in a bit. Mostly because we pull some of these numbers, like how many people own the game from SteamDB. Obviously, there's some push and pull with that too. Now, what's important is this is how these things work. You're going to have a slow churn over a period of a month. And this isn't a churn. We're going to use more technical verbiage here. But in the span of a month, we've gone from an average, we're basically hitting a running average where we're losing just shy of maybe 100 players a week. And eventually, this is going to plateau at some number. If we go and look back over a year ago, so this is release in October of 2025. This was the final update before the release of the game, and we got all the way down to like 300 players. I think this number got relatively low, mostly because everyone knew that the wipe was going to come at some point, and whatever they did, whatever progress they made was going to get wiped out. Then with release, we saw that higher. I would say this rate is probably going to balance off, and we're going to hover maybe around 500 to 1,000 players once everything stabilizes. That's not necessarily bad, but let's take a look at some other Steam databases for other online games. Now, this is going to be a very difficult one to talk through, but if we just look at the 6-month pattern here, this is a long-standing game. It's been around for quite a while, 9 years, and it actually had a stagnant period for a really long point in time. If we go out to the 9 months, it had low player counts. If you were looking at it just from this period here, it would look relatively flat with an increase, and then it started to scale up until it became more mainstream, and now it is also going down. I think if you ask anyone, Final Fantasy XIV is one of the more successful modern MMOs. It is pretty clear why. Moving on, if we go and look at Guild Wars 2, their maximum time, this is only for the Steam version. Guild Wars 2 has been out for a decade or more at this point, but it's only been out on Steam for just over a year. This is what their numbers look like. This is a static kind of point here. And Guild Wars 2 is really, really good at being able to draw players in. It's more for the modern MMO player. It doesn't take that much time at all to level your character up. It's more about the content, more about the community, and more about like the dungeon running and the realm versus realm. I liked Guild Wars 2. I like the original Guild Wars better, but I liked both of their games from ArenaNet. And in both of these cases, they have a pretty static community. Now, this is obviously a game that's been around for 10 years. It's going to be hard to compare that to Pax Dei, but you can see again, it's relatively static. And you'll have release periods where there's a patch, and then people come and check it out, and then it goes down. And then right now, there's been kind of a resurgence with the new expansion that's been coming out for Guild Wars 2. Now, going to more similar companies, we have a game like Bitcraft Online. This is one that even showed up on my radar from a while back. It has not necessarily similar amount of positivity from Steam reviews. However, it is still a very early game. It launched into its early access phase around this point in time. That's when you see all the jump in players. But again, you're going to start seeing this relatively slow decline. And after they got to around 500 players, they're there. I wouldn't call Bitcraft Online an unsuccessful MMO in the slightest, and they're only growing going forward. Then another great example here, we can take a look at Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This also has relatively decent Steam reviews. The player count, though, has dipped down to a really low amount. Wouldn't necessarily call them a particularly like a failed MMO. None of these, I think, are failed MMOs. But again, even if we look down here, the number of copies sold are projected to be in and around a third of where Pax Dei is. So just some comparisons in and around it. And again, these are games that I would say are a callback now to actual MMOs. They are an appeal to players who actually want to play an MMO. This is not mainstream anymore. Mainstream MMOs are not MMOs. They are games that you pay extra money for with cash shops to basically level yourself up so that you can come and play whenever they release new story content or release a new dungeon. You go and do that for a while, and then you go on to the next game. There's not that many people in the gaming community now that are what I call monogamous, but that is a player who is only playing a single game. They're committed to that game. Most players are now playing multiple different types of games. Their attention economy is split across many different games. That's not the type of player that an MMO is really keen for, or at least the traditional ones. Now, when we're looking at Bitcraft Online, when we're looking at Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, these are callbacks to OG, you must commit lots of time to MMOs. And we see lower player counts. So the economics of this is going to have to go into account, which brings me to, yes, I did make a spreadsheet, and it is directly above my head. So one of the things that I was really interested in with this is like, how does a studio like Mainframe work? And what are the numbers that they're really playing around with? And let me just move myself over here while we're talking. So what I did here, I did talk with some AI, but I also pulled some of the information that I have available to me. For example, I know that Mainframe's raised just shy of $30 million going through a Series B in fundraising. So they had a series, they had a seed, a Series A, and a Series B. For anyone who's wondering, what's this lingo? They're basically just terms for different points, different inflection points or milestones that a company's gone through, where they change the valuation that they have and they ask investors for money with the promise that in the future they're going to be able to make more money. A couple of the key investors, we have Riot Games who invested. We have one of the co-founders of Twitch invested in Mainframe. We also have some of the CCP connections, so from EVE Online. And then another very big one is Andreessen Horowitz, which I wouldn't say that I don't think they led any of the rounds, but they did participate in both the Series A and Series B round. Nevertheless, all you need to know is money came in to Mainframe, approximately $30 million. They've been in development since 2019. It's now 2026. That means they've been around for 7 years, and they've had $30 million. At some point in time, they had around 80-ish employees. We also know from various developer talks and things like that outside of Pax Dei at like professional conferences and stuff like that, they probably had around 80-ish employees before they had the layoffs that happened about a year ago. And then now we're at the point where they have, if you go and check them out on like LinkedIn, for example, they have 49 listed employees currently working at the company. So we put together a bunch of these numbers, looked at the average fully loaded is just a terminology for like, you know, how much money an employee costs in addition to just their salary, but like healthcare or other fees you have to pay for their tools, their equipment, and all of that stuff too. So we blended all of that stuff together and then accounted for the fact that dollars are weaker than the euros currently. So we did all of that math, and then we went through and looked at the revenue. Again, we pulled this directly from the estimations that exist on the Steam database, as well as looking through, for Steam as well, they take 30% because you're listed on Steam. Congratulations. And then we also did some revenue based on just some industry standard numbers. Again, I don't know what these numbers are. These are just brain thoughts and things that are going on. But either way, if you estimated on the first month, there was probably the peak player count for Pax Dei on release was about 7,000. And if you assume that the first month, so this is 7,000 players at the same time. This isn't 7,000 players only. So people are logging on, logging off. It basically what we estimated was, hey, about 15,000 subscribers. And of those, the blended subscription rate there comes out to be like $12. And then we have a subscriber churn rate plus new subscriber growth. You can see the churn rate is higher right now than the subscribers. That's, again, I don't know these actual numbers, but it was a fun little thought experiment. And then we looked at the total round plus how much I think that they had. Again, don't know. And then accounted for some game sales. I'm not going to go take a look at the burn rate, but we will go ahead and just take a look at where they are, where their runway is, and all of that. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because everything that we've said up until this point, most people don't actually want to play MMOs anymore. Most people want to get that instant hit of nostalgia, go and do it, go on to the next thing. They don't want to spend lots and lots and lots of time like what you have to do in Pax Dei. So where is this going to? Well, we looked at all of the player counts. We can see, yes, the player counts are going in the wrong direction, but that is to be expected with MMOs, with release cycles, and arguably Pax Dei doesn't have that much content in it. And if you don't have players making the content, then you get into this weird kind of downward spiral. Eventually that will stabilize. They'll get to a certain point. But what does that mean? I think what this means is that Mainframe is getting ready to go for another fundraise. That's what I think. I think they're going to go for Series C investment round if they haven't already been trying to close it. And I think they're going to be raising more money off of that in order to continue to bring additional content to us, the players. And the reason for that is because when you look at assumptions like this, and again, this is me creating it, none of this is from Mainframe whatsoever. But when you look at these numbers, I think there's actually a pretty compelling case where, and mind you, I also put in here their cloud and server infrastructure at $80,000 a month. But I think they actually have a lot more efficient ways of doing that. They're always spinning up and spinning down servers. So they're actually quite more efficient than I think we give them credit for, but still probably high. So again, these are all going in different directions. But at the end of the day, I wanted to see, hey, what is the idea going into this of a year from now? Where is Mainframe going to be, and what are they going to be looking to show? I think they're already kind of showing it in that they needed to prove to people in the outside world, hey, there is still a market for traditional MMOs. There is still a market. There are still people who are out there in the world who want to grind and actually play a game. They want hardcore PvP mechanics. They want full loot for those PvP mechanics. By the way, Pax Dei is not a hardcore PvP MMORPG. I want to get this out there. I've seen these comments show up time and time again in my comments. Pax Dei is not a hardcore PvP MMO. Pax Dei has an opt-in PvP zone that has no special resources or special things in it that you must have, that you can't get unless you go in for yourself. Unless you're counting the two different enchantment items being the Amber Grasp and the Cannonite. but you can buy those from other players who are going in there. So you are not blocked from any type of content by not going into the PvP zone. Pax Dei is not a hardcore PvP MMORPG. If anything, Pax Dei is a hardcore PvE MMORPG because their best system that exists in the game right now, which they themselves have said, is their building system, which is PvE. And yes, by the way, we can build in PvP areas if you own a Shrine Starchild 1000. Sometimes I don't look too deeply into YouTube comments because people sometimes just they don't pay attention and they just need to watch Pax Friday reviews more. This is, by the way, if anyone's watching this and you're like, what the heck is this guy doing? This isn't normal. Normally we talk about like the news that happens in Pax Day, but in this particular case, we didn't have any. So I decided let's go down a rabbit hole. So that's what we're doing. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you actually want news, because we cover it and cover it a lot. In fact, we're going to try and get a developer interview some point in time on this channel, hopefully in the next several months. But that's neither here nor there. I think that they've proven they have a pretty decent subscriber base, I would imagine. And they've also shown without a cash shop that they can actually generate money. I was being very conservative with a lot of my numbers that I put on here. By the way, I think their payroll might be a little bit lower than that on a monthly basis, but I don't know. Additionally, I gave them a pretty high cloud server infrastructure point. I think they're actually far more efficient. They really aren't spending too much stuff in terms of marketing right now. If they were, I would imagine I would at least know, or have some kind of exposure to that. Like, they're not running articles or anything like that, but we still put the budgets up there. But nevertheless, they're able to show, hey, when we offer things like free weekends, we see a spike in player interest, meaning players are interested in the game. We're pulling in a lot of players. It's something that's highly interesting to them. All they need is more money and more time in order to really refine this and get these numbers up. If they can get to a peak of 7,000 players at release, then that means they can get back to that number because people were interested. The 11,000 when they released into early access, that might be a little bit harder to get back to in the near term, because a lot of these players didn't know what Pax Dei was and they were trying it out because there was hype, because channels like Asmongold and like Narc, when he was around, and many others were all talking about it. And then they had some bad press come out because people didn't understand that hardcore MMOs mean you have to grind. And then we got to this point with release. But 7,000 is a perfectly healthy number. And now they've shown to investors, hey, we can get this. We just need to put more stuff in the game. We need to build more content. What every player is saying, what every person says is, hey, we need more stuff. So this actually looks like a pretty compelling investment case, because if I give you more money, you will be able to build more content, which will bring more players into the game. If you bring more players into the game, you're going to make more money. And this is traditionally in a space where other incoming companies have been having a more difficult time of success. If you look at Bitcraft Online, which, again, I'm putting them in the same category, by the way. Like, Bitcraft Online has a lot of similar features to what Pax Dei does. It's a sandbox. It's kind of grindy. You can create your own civilizations and your own settlements as well. And then Pantheon is more of just the more grindy aspect, but it is definitely more theme parky in that regard. And these are companies that have been given funding to go and do these types of activities as well. So nevertheless, I've ranted for long enough. Somehow we have managed to get from a 0 new content week to me barking for 30 minutes about why I think people don't actually want to play MMOs anymore, or most people don't, and yet they get frustrated at the games that they really want. Everyone gets really excited when it comes to a game like Pax Dei where they're like, oh, I can grind and I can be different than other people because I'll commit more time than they will. And I'll be better at things and I'll differentiate myself. And I'm not just going to be another character in a slew of characters. I'm going to have a story that I'm going to make and I'm going to be unique, which is what people want. But they don't have the time for it. So they don't actually want it. But they're lying to themselves and they think that's what they want. And I'd love to hear about what you all think down in the comments. This right here, I think if I was looking through Mainframe, which I think they're actually a pretty good case study as to how to do like a startup from a software, from a video game startup. And it's really interesting how they operate. They do a lot of lean business activities. I can talk about that in another video if people are actually interested in it. If you've made it to this part of the video, then you definitely are. But either way, I think Mainframe is queuing themselves up for a pretty successful run here. And they certainly, even based on the projection that I have, they will be here for a while, which is also nice to know. So let me know what you think down in the comments. I am here for it. I'm really excited for what's coming. I think in the next week or two, we're going to be having our next update to Arcadia, which is the public test server. That's going to be a very fun one to cover because dueling is going to be coming with that update as well as several other things. The last patch that came out has actually been amazing. The quality of life updates have been insanely good, and it's all moved in the right direction. I'm actually very happy with it, and I'm looking forward to where that's going. We have a lot of content coming more towards the late spring and early summer time frame as well, so we're going to be covering that and talking about that as well. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe so you get notified whenever we come out with new Pax Dei or Pax Dei related content, and share this video with any of your friends who might be interested in learning more about Pax Dei. I'd like to say a special thank you to all of our channel sponsors, all of our channel members who have been financially helping us so that we can keep this channel going and doing all the fun stuff that we do in the community. So until the next video, I'm Altari, the Professional Gamer.